fundamentally, I think you cannot be a good technologist if you're a pessimist, right? Like, why build new things then? Also, I guess if you wait a few more years, there will be AI that will kind of like redo the whole thing with that person's voice
maybe.
and intonation in a select language of choice. Like,
so you would send your avatar, basically?
Yeah, I mean, that would probably be a setting in the podcast app. Like, I want to listen to this. Originally, it's in Portuguese, but I actually want to listen to this in Swedish.
Oh, you mean like that? Okay, yeah.
And it's going to do that with that person's voice and all the intonation and so on.
Yeah, I thought you meant like I don't even have to invite the guest. You can just send your AI.
Then you can send yours, I guess.
Yeah. So our avatars would have some sort of chatbot discussion.
Yeah,
that'd be good. We are rolling. Welcome to Heja Framtiden, Alper Aydemir, CEO of a company called Volumental.
Yeah,
here in
CTO,
Stockholm.
Yeah,
CTO.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
One of those. Yeah.
But maybe before we get into Volumental, I think your story is quite interesting. How you got to where you are today.
Mm-hmm.
So can we start from there? Where are you from originally?
I'm from Istanbul,
okay.
In Turkey. I grew up in Istanbul. Been a part of Istanbul where it's mostly populated by Greeks and Armenians. Went to a French high school, but for most of my life I lived in Istanbul. Then I moved to Stockholm to try to learn how to build basically robots and try to learn everything that it takes to do that, which led me on a journey to go into areas within artificial intelligence, such as computer vision, sort of dealing with trying to make sense of images or make computers understand images, which is our most like richest sense. If you consider all the senses that we have, like touch and hearing and smell and so on. The visual information is the most info-dense one. After that, I got an opportunity to contribute at NASA, at the Computer Vision Lab. Worked on some projects there, mainly like robotics challenges, like make stuff drive itself, cars, robots, build a robot that can change a tire of a car and so on. Then I actually... a short stint at Google and so on, but also then I decided to come back to Stockholm and start Volumental, basically. So that's short version.
Why were you so interested in robotics from the beginning?
I thought that was the next logical evolution after the computer revolution. So I thought like computers today, I'm looking at your laptop, it's sitting there, it's not doing anything by itself. It can't like interact with the world. It doesn't change the state of the world. It can't move this coffee cup from here to here. And I thought that would be the next evolution of these smart things. But it takes a lot to build it. It takes a lot of different disciplines that comes together. Not just software, but also like electronics and all the other things. So you need to be sort of a little bit of a jack of all trades to do something. Like you need to be able to program the software and design the body of the robot, also build the electronics that actually drives it and so on, and put it all together. So that's why I wanted to learn all the different parts.
And you got into KTH in Stockholm, Royal Institute of Technology, and then you went to the US.
Mm-hmm.
And why did you decide to come back? What was the embryo to Volumental?
For me personally, I like the challenge of doing something from scratch and also mainly having more control over my life or decisions and so on. That's a bit difficult to do when you're working in a 10,000 people organization. But also I felt like computer vision and these sorts of technologies are coming to a point where some of this can now escape the research labs and go into the hands of like everybody, of people. So that's the part that really excited me. When we actually conducted some studies when we gave these technologies like computer vision, for instance, scanning things, 3D scanning things to people. And we have realized that one of the first things people did is to turn the camera to themselves, scan themselves, scan their bodies or their friends or their families and so on. Or their pets, actually. We had a lot of dogs and horses and so on. So then I thought this would be a great opportunity to actually build this as a company and build the things that I wanted to build, basically.
At the moment, you are specialized in 3D scanning of footwear, right?
Yeah, at the moment, yes, exactly.
So is this just the beginning, you think? Are you looking into other areas as well?
We have looked into other areas in the past, for instance, faces. So in that sense, I think as an industry, as a sort of the way things are going, this is just the beginning. But I guess what we learned is that it's important to focus and do one thing well first. And that takes some time and effort. And yeah, when we move on to the other parts, you hopefully won't have to relearn everything from scratch. But for now, we are in footwear and scanning people's feet and recommending products and making them basically healthier, better runners and all sorts of things.
So what is the typical client for you?
Those are big brands and retailers of this world. So we are quite a small team, around 45 people, but we're in 39 countries in actual stores. Our clients, our customers are also global companies who has presence all over the world with all sorts of different cultures and languages and so on and so forth.
So in a big shoe retailer, there could be that Nike has bought your equipment.
Yeah, so New Balance, for instance, is one of our big customers.
So then they have branded a sort of scanner.
Yeah. So if you I was just in Tokyo some weeks ago. Go to the New Balance Harajuku store. It's the kind of funky place. You will have on each floor 2 volumental scanners scanning people in 3D, recommending what's the best fit, what's the best New Balance fit for you, and so on.
Okay, based on if you want to run a lot or if you want to play soccer or
based on the type of activity that you want to have, and that's in. That's that one store in Tokyo, but we have all over the world. So,
can you describe the complexity in the product? What is most difficult with developing this?
I think the most difficult thing was to build something that is that just works, as cliche as that sounds, because people don't have they just want things that works. They don't have a lot of patience. They don't have especially retail is one of the harshest environments where you can put a complex computer vision gizmo in. I think I was in Hong Kong last year and I just visited for fun one of the stores that we have a scanner, and I saw that there was a kid kicking one of the cameras. But the whole thing should still work and should be robust, and it should just be a button press or hopefully 0 button presses. It just reacts to you. So building that takes a lot of computer vision, software smarts. So making the interaction, there's usually a trade-off between how much interaction you need and how complex of a thing you need to build. So less buttons, you need smarter software.
I actually met one of your employees, Julia Krantz, a year ago. Yeah. At some interactive tattoo workshop we had.
Yeah.
So you tattooed with some kind of color that was leading electricity. So you can have lights in between. We talked a little bit about fashion tech, and you said that you're not a fashion tech expert.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fashion person. Yes, I'm more of a yeah. I like sneakers and so on, but it's not. I haven't designed any clothes or anything, and Julia would shoot me if I said that I did. So she's our creative art director.
Yeah, but you still make processes within the fashion industry easier, and hopefully reduce waste and reduce wrong buyings and stuff like that. I mean, there seems to be many opportunities within that area.
Yeah,
because the whole industry has been so unsustainable in a way.
Yeah, exactly, and also it hasn't changed since 100 years. Amazing as it is, so people still build like footwear, whatever activity type that may be, the same way they did 100 years ago, pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, like we have a customer who is now changing their entire product line because they have scanned nearly 1 million people and can now look at that data and figure out what types of shapes there are out there, what like demographics, how to make a better fitting shoe and so on. And more we see custom-made, custom-built things. So you, as a regular person, will be able to go into a store, get sized up, get scanned, and a whole new thing will be, like a whole new pair of shoes will be made just for you in the moment. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking about. I mean, your technology paired with 3D printing, for example, would be really interesting for many people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Has 3D printing or additive manufacturing reached those retail environments?
Not quite. I think that's one of those things where everybody is like talking about it, thinking about it, but actually it's a hard, slow process to do it at scale. It is getting there, definitely. But as of right now, there isn't anything that can like deliver that dream at scale. And it's mostly a cost thing. It's like bringing down the cost of doing this. Like we have machines that can make a pair of like new sneakers just for you. Right now, we have those processes. It's just not cost effective currently.
Okay. And you worked with NASA and defense projects. Do you see, I mean, there's a lot of secrecy around that. You know, they put a lot of effort and talent and money into those innovations. And do you see that they could help make the world a better place in other areas?
I think, yeah. I mean, I'm in general an optimist, like technology optimist. So, and some of the stuff has been happening already, right? Like, so for instance, self-driving cars, that's a piece of technology that started as a grand challenge. NASA was part of it. And it's all about autonomy of devices and how to make these vehicles understand and react to their environment, complex environments. So we can count that as like one of those projects that is now coming to the public. I think that we all follow the news these days. So I guess I don't have to. It's not news to anybody that, for instance, the new global internet network by SpaceX. That's the thing that will become a reality in the next decade. But I guess what I want to emphasize is that this stuff takes longer time than what you read on the newspapers and so on. It always takes more time than you think it will.
I think that's an important lesson. Just because something is possible doesn't mean it's available or accessible.
Yeah. And I think we're heading in this world where it's easy, like it's quite unintuitive for people to reason about such things. And one of the main reasons is that I think we project other skills as people. When we see someone doing something, we also automatically assume that they can do other things. So for instance, if I see you driving a car, I probably can assume that you can also walk, right? You can get out of the car, or you can, hold an intelligent conversation with me, and so on and so forth. Whereas that's not true with software or with these like narrow AI systems. When you have a self-driving car software, it can only do that. That doesn't necessarily mean that it can do other things. other very simple things as well. So in that sense, I think what we're going to see is a lot of narrow AIs that does one thing well, hopefully, but has no clue how to do other things.
But once you connect thousands of narrow AIs, don't you think they can become a general AI?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that's. I think I'm a bit more on the stop the hype train side when it comes to this. I totally believe that at some point in my lifetime, I will be able to book a robot taxi in Stockholm, right? And maybe it will work, hopefully, in Vasastan, right? Maybe it won't take me anywhere, like your summer house or whatever, because that's too like unstructured of an environment. But I can get to most places in Stockholm. I think that will happen in my lifetime. But we have no clue about how the brain works. Like we have very, 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 very little clue. We don't have small like green people in our brains that like one of them knows how to drive a car, the other one knows how to like drink from a cup, the other one knows how to like we don't have that. And this is actually a very hot debate in the robotics world. I've been part of this some time ago a workshop in the largest robotics conference in the world, where the question was, how do we build like intelligence, or how do we build general intelligence? And there was one camp that was more on we do that by building stuff. Just keep building stuff, right? Like just build a car that drives itself. Okay, done. Build a robot that can pick up a cup and put it elsewhere. Do that. And it does that with 100% reliability. And then do a conversational chatbot and so on and so on. Just keep doing these things that will eventually
take small steps.
Yeah. But then there was another camp that said that building software that drives a car teaches us nothing about how does a human reason, or very little about how does a human reason about the space and decision taking and so on and so forth. We actually need to do some more cognitive studies, study the brain and so on and so forth. So those are actually two of the biggest camps today where researchers are debating this. Obviously, the first camp leans itself more to startups and companies and more commercial outcomes. And the other one is more of a scientific pursuit.
Yeah, I was invited to a conversation with something called Stockholm Futurists last week. And they were discussing the future of humanity with regards to the brain upgrades. And we talked about uploading, which is sort of sci-fi term still, but some people believe that it might be possible in the future to upload your brain or your mind to a computer, and then you can get rid of the body. But as you're implying, I think that it won't really work, because it's not just knowledge as it is stored on a hard drive. It's not just structured knowledge into different files and folders. The complexity of the brain that makes me jump into my references, where a smell or a sound can throw me back to a childhood memory and suddenly think about the dinner tonight and my kids' homework and stuff like that. It will be very difficult to replicate such a mess.
Yeah, and it is a mess.
And that's what makes me. That's my point.
Yeah.
A computer would be very rational about everything. Whereas the human brain is not. It's jumping around from different senses and different references all the time.
Yeah, computers are very rigid, right? Like I can flip a single bit, and crash the whole thing down. It's in that sense they are not. I mean, it's not even guaranteed that we can actually build brains just by building more complex software with the current architecture, like compute architectures that we have today, right? Like it's not just more data centers, right? Like that's another statistic that gets thrown around by year so and so. The total amount of computer power in the world will equal to one person's brain, or more than all of humanity's brains and so on and so forth. I think one can totally make some kind of comparison like that, but there is a good chance we're comparing apples to oranges as well. I mean, we are not instruction machines, right? We're not just compute these formulas a billion times a second. So I think the jury is still out in terms of whether we can achieve that kind of general intelligence.
And the second question is it really interesting to do that? I mean, why should we do it?
I definitely think that we should do it.
Oh, really?
The way I think about it is that this is a bit, I guess, philosophical, but if there wasn't a brain, would there be physics? Would there be chemistry? Would there be? I mean, it's all made up by us. So as I said, I'm a technology optimist. I think things do get better. Like if you were to ask me which date you would live, rather, I would always pick the most future date possible in that time scale. My wife, for instance, she wants to live in the 1800s, which is really weird.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think that's on our civilization path to do something like that.
I mean, it's part of our evolution in a way,
yeah,
to create other species and some sort of post-human existence.
Yeah, be explorers. I think that's really the thing. To be explorers. I think we do things because we can. We don't need a reason more than that. We just are explorers.
Do you think that applies to space exploration and travel as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can pose the same question, why do we need to go to Mars, or why do we need to learn more about the universe?
Yeah, some people are critical.
Yeah.
About that.
I think it's in our nature. It's what makes us human, to explore, to be curious.
Let's go back to scanning feet for a while.
Okay.
No, but running a startup in Stockholm. What is your view on that? What are the benefits and the struggles?
I think if you were to, this is what I usually say, if you were to, and tying it to the previous conversation, if you were to have general artificial intelligence and load all the facts and ask the computer, hey computer, should I start a company? And it would almost always say no, with big red letters. You will most likely fail. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be, you will sort of stare into the abyss and so on and so forth. And it will stare back at you and so on. But all in all, of course, it's a great learning experience. Doing it in Stockholm has its own unique flavors and I think challenges. I think what's you're a bit removed from from US, for instance, right? You're not always on site and so on and so forth. But at the same time, you gain a lot by being here also. I think the AI scene in Stockholm in Sweden is still quite has ways to go. I'm usually one of those people who say that in the tech scene in Stockholm, we are very good at saying how very good we are. We are good at patting ourselves on the back, and we should do that sometimes. I mean, we should celebrate our wins and so on. I think one of those people who, if I were to take a stance and so on, is to say that we are doing that a little bit too much, and we need to be also a bit critical. So, for instance, I don't see any big, if you think about the most recent headline-grabbing initiatives on the AI side, let's just take that as an example. None of those come from Stockholm. And yeah, sure, we have some unicorns, people say. And that's also, I think, one of the interesting metrics that people talk about, unicorn per capita. Which I find a bit ridiculous, to be honest. I don't think that's... And I mean, I have full respect for people who are, talking about that and so on. But we need to, also come up with new ones. We can't just rest on the successes of Spotify and Klarna, right? Like we've moved on. We need to do new things now. So if you look at it in the like AI scene, we really don't have much yet to offer to the world, I think.
But Swedes are very good at explaining the risks with AI.
Yes, yeah.
Like Nick Boström, Max Tegmark, the AI Sustainability Center.
Yeah. I followed that as well, and I read some of those books. I think there's certainly a point to like making these systems work in a way not to like discriminate against certain groups in society and so on and so forth. I just think that we're far from like Skynet gaining consciousness one day and then ending the world. So I find that a bit alarmist from what they like, that part of what they say. So, but coming back to like what is actually happening, you have like all this self-driving car like boom, right, elsewhere in the world. You have the DeepMind, the like brain initiatives elsewhere in the world. Those are not based in Stockholm. Like you can't really point out to a center of excellence in AI that is listened to and followed by people in the world that is located in Stockholm or located in Sweden. And I think that should be a bigger deal than it is right now. So I'm one of those people who thinks that we should celebrate our wins, yes, but we should also take a serious look at like how we are progressing and be self-critical. Yeah.
And I mean, there are initiatives within AI as well, but do you think that Swedish companies maybe don't really understand the potential benefits of working with AI?
Yeah, I think, it's almost like since I worked in my day-to-day life with big companies, that's almost like a definition of a big company. They are a bit slower than usual. They're not like, it takes some time for them to appreciate the new stuff. I think we could have also, though, more new initiatives, not just like existing companies, but new initiatives coming out of Sweden in this space. It would be an interesting discussion to dig deeper into that and talk about that more. I don't have the answers. I think, is it maybe a question of ambition, right? Like, is it a question of, like if you take DeepMind, for instance, that's London-based, they started out with like, we're going to solve intelligence. That's an ambitious mission statement. Maybe we're not thinking as ambitious as we could be, or maybe the people who can like fund such a venture, it just doesn't exist here. People are more risk averse in that sense. So I think we have, I guess my TLDR, my sort of summary is that, yeah, we had some successes and so on. It's great. We have a high enough unicorn per capita number. We talked about that enough. Now also talk about what our role is going to be in the future. Are we just going to be users of things, or are we going to be the makers?
Yeah. And what about the future of yourself and Volumental? I
think we are pretty much on a great growth curve, and we'll like continue on that. Our goal is to bring this technology to as many people as possible and have help. I think our mission is to help at least 500 million people find the perfect fitting products that are out there. So we'll continue on that journey, and I think every single person has. One of the things I'm also kind of feel good about is that each one of these companies act almost as universities. People who come in, they learn a lot of stuff just by virtue of doing new things that they've never done before. And then when they move on to later parts of their life, they can actually create more stuff now in this ecosystem.
You mean after working at Volumental?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I think that's if you look at ecosystems, I think that's one of the multipliers, right? That's sort of how ecosystems mature in a way.
So you as an employer you need to rely on providing knowledge and training, even though the employee can leave the next day and go work somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean trust. Like just give people the mandate, the power to like run and trust them, and also know that there are going to be mistakes, but that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it like interesting, I think.
So what is your best tip for making the world a better place in the future?
Try to have the biggest impact that you can make with the tools that you have available to you. That would be my aim for that, basically. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in a better direction, I guess. But I also don't know, like, it's a bit like, what is the definition of a better place? That's, I guess, the question.
Your best tip for making the world, making people wear better footwear.
I think
better
that's
fitting shoes.
Yeah, well, I think I'm more of a small idea person than a big idea person. I don't really believe in like big ideas. I think I'm more of a bottom up person. Like you build things by being in the trenches, by actually building things, not just saying things or not just like predicting things, but actually doing things.
And they can be small, but they can evolve.
Exactly. So I'm much more on the sort of like, what are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing the day after? What are we doing the next week? Things. And also sometimes when I hear people talking about like future and so on and so forth, you also need to look at what is it that they are doing. Are they just like talking about future all the time? I'm not sure that
many people are.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that that's the best people to listen to when it comes to how it's going to be like or how it is right now. I think when you are in the trenches, and that doesn't matter. I mean, that can be for startup building, that can be for technology building, that can be for whatever it is that you're doing. When you are in the trenches, you know how it is. You know the challenges. You know how difficult things are, and so on. Sure, you can get a little bit of a tunnel vision, of course, but I'm highly skeptical of people who are just professional conference speakers. That's almost a sure sign for me. Like if you see an AI company CEO or someone in a lot of conferences all the time, just know that they're not building anything great. That's my rule of thumb. It has worked so far.
Yeah, sometimes you wonder how they can find the time.
No,
it's amazing.
But they don't. I mean, they find the time to speak at events, but then not so much to like build things. Because it takes you need to be in the zone for a long time. Like most good things. And it doesn't matter if this is AI or like if you're practicing an art or some sort of artisanal craft, you need to be in the zone for a given amount of time and focused. And those people tend to be grumpy, usually. They tend to be slightly on the realistic side. That doesn't mean we don't need people like discussing about how we upload our brains to the internet. I think those are very fun conversations, and that's, a lot of super great sci-fi came out of it, which became a goalpost for science, right? But it's not only about just predicting stuff all day long. Try building it yourself. It's not that hard. I mean, it's just try it for a day. There are tons of tutorials today on the internet. Just try to do something. And then try to imagine how to go from that to general intelligence. That will humble you a little bit.
Yeah, it's a big step.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I'm trying with this podcast as well. I want the big thinkers, and I want the philosophers and the professional speakers, but I want the entrepreneurs and the practitioners as well, because I want it to be solution focused. Because other people are very good at just talking about problems or talking about how the future was going to be. But then that's why I asked the question, well, how do you see that we can make the world a better place? I didn't think that from the beginning when I started interviewing, that many people would have quite a negative view of the world today, but they were still optimistic about the future. If you work in the food tech industry, you're quite critical of how the food system works. If you work in the ed tech industry, you're quite critical of how the education system works. So I think it quickly became a bit more negative than I thought. But then I said it has to be okay, because we can't just sit there and pretend everything is perfect.
No.
Because that doesn't create solutions. But I think optimism creates solutions. But we have to discuss the problems in order to find solutions. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's almost like an expected outcome when you have. I see that as a good sign, actually, because when you have like a lot of smart people caring about things, deeply thinking about things, it's almost guaranteed you are going to hear a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you about all the things that is not working well, that's not like going well. It can be improved.
Yeah, and it's kind of encouraging as well if we all agree that we live in the best of worlds and the best of times ever in the history of humanity, and still lots of things are really shitty.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, we can only go up from here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I also, I mean, fundamentally, I think you cannot be a good technologist if you're a pessimist, right? Like, why build new things then if it's not going to make it better? So you have to be an optimist, I think. But this is why that makes it such a tough challenge, because you need to be an optimist long term and a realist short term. So you need to be able to say, like, yeah, we'll get there. We will at some point and so on. But you will not get a robot taxi next year. Like, that's not, that's not going to happen, because, like, if you just try this stuff, you know that it's hard. Like, if you just or listen to people who has tried it. So it's a tough balance.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because sometimes for some startups, you initially feel like, wow, that's amazing. It's so fun that you're doing this. And at the same time, I feel strongly that this is never going to work. You're not going to be around in 2 years' time. And I'm kind of often quite correct when it comes to those predictions.
Yeah, that's like overall, I think on the ecosystem level, you will have survivors, and a lot of them will die. But that's fine, I think, as long as, I mean, because you have to think that it stays within the system, especially here where the safety net is quite good. So all those people that came out of these failed experiments are now wiser, right? Like that's the whole the upside of this.
But do you think that more people should just try and build their invention and just take the leap? Are we too comfortable still?
In the environment that I'm in, I think we are a little bit too comfortable still. I think more people should launch and do their things and fail faster, and just be okay with that, that they are going to fail. I think that's one of the things that gives, like, doing this once gives you that perspective. Like it's going to be fires all day long, putting out fires, and that's like how it is. It's a roller coaster. So I definitely think that we should have more people going into it rather than going into these tech giants, I think. And that's for the overall health of the ecosystem. I have still like a lot of ties with KTH, with the computer vision lab, robotics lab, and so on. And I feel a little bit sad every time I sort of like a really good star or like person leaves to like a huge company. I mean, let's not make it like a tragedy either, right? Like they're heading off the pretty comfortable life, and it's great, and It's great to have alumni and so on in those companies as well. But I just want Swedish environment and so on to have some say in the things to come, right? Like if you're getting in cars and driving us go to places and having conversations with agents and eating like lab-grown meat and all these things, I just want some part of that future built here, not just only users of it, or not just only narrow set of like things that we do. Yeah.
Okay, so we need to build some kind of heavily financed future center.
I think so. I've been actually low-key pitching this to the people I know about this.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we have, I think, enough like concentration of capital here.
Some kind of independent innovation lab.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we should just be more courageous about that, taking that leap. I always thought, I mean, I'm an outsider to the Swedish society, even though I've lived now here on and off for 9 years. So I always thought that we are not utilizing the full value of like the assets that we have, like the people, the brand of Sweden, and so on and so forth. I only ended up in Sweden by accident, basically. It was not on my radar. If you look at number of, this is from the most recent robotics, a few of the robotics conferences. If you look at, I saw one chart based on like number of papers per country, and we're far down the list.
Academic papers.
Yeah. But we live in an age where some of those end up being billion-dollar companies. Like that's the battleground now. Like if you go to NIPS, for instance, one of the premier AI conferences, it is a battleground, literally. Like it is a war between these companies trying to get talent, like pulling people from their legs and arms. And I would like us to be seen more there. And by us, I mean the Swedish tech scene.
Yeah, and there probably could be very interesting applications developed if these talents weren't just vacuumed up by the tech giants.
Yeah, and I think that's why I really lightened up with your like when you suggested this like initiative and so on.
I suggested. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's my idea.
The grandfather. Yeah. I think we should
patent pending.
I think we should put these people and add some necessary ingredients, and great things will come out of that, just because they are like super smart people given enough tools.
I think that this is a future we're heading towards, that more schools and companies are collaborating when it comes to innovation. But still, if we want to do it on a larger scale, I think we need some coordination. And do you think the governments should be involved in funding? The governments should make it easy, like remove obstacles. I mean, we all know how messy the like immigration stuff is, visas and so on. That has been. They should like just remove those obstacles, I think, so that people who wants to be here can come here and stay here. Who wants to work on these topics? I mean. I just think there are so many things we can like explore and think. I'm sure some people are thinking along similar lines. Maybe they have even modeled it. I myself have done it in my own little way, like just fired up some Excel and put in numbers, and if it was this many people, this is how much investment it would take and so on. But imagine how fun it would be if we had like you said, an AI center or like a concentration of people and like tools and like resources. Well, there is one in Gothenburg now, in Lindholmen, with collaboration between academia and industry. So something similar would probably be welcome here in Stockholm as well. Great. Do you have any reading tips? I'm gonna suggest reading Shoe Dog. It's the story of Nike, how it started, how it like became Nike. It's a fascinating story. I think it's fascinating
because it shows how much grit you need to have, how much like pain you need to go through. Like it's about a story being, as I was saying, being in the trenches.
Okay.
Right?
Phil
like,
Knight.
Yeah,
Shoe
Phil
Dog.
Knight. He didn't have a lot of time to speak in events. I can tell you that. Like when building Nike. That I think is a fascinating story. And then the second one, I think the one I'm reading right now is Ray Dalio's Principles. That's also another it's a different industry and so on, but it's also from the trenches story. Be in the trenches. It's a
Ray
good place to be.
Dalio, Principles.
Yeah.
Who's Ray Dalio?
He's one of those finance people.
He founded an investment firm called Bridgewater Associates. Okay.
Exactly. He's one of those finance people, which I'm not like big on, like on that industry. But from what I read so far, it's you get an inside view of like how it's built from the ground up, from scratch, and then he discusses some key principles that you can follow, or actually you may not follow them, but the whole point is that you should have some principles that guides you in your life and work and so on.
Okay. Who do you think I should interview in Heja Framtiden?
I think it's Rodney Brooks, if you can get a hold of him. I think he's quite like accessible. He was previous head of MIT's AI lab. And he writes a lot about the things we just talked about in terms of like how much of a hype there is in technology and how it's going to be realistically where we are. He's founder also of iRobot, one of I think the largest robotics company, like consumer robotics company, which is one of the hardest things you can do. Like robotics is hard, building consumer products are hard. Putting the two together is like a suicide mission. But anyways, he like was one of the founders of iRobot.
Yeah, I found his blog now. It seems really interesting.
Yeah.
RodneyBrooks.com.
Yeah.
Robots, AI, and other stuff.
Yeah. He's one of the people that influenced robotics as a researcher also in a big way.
Okay.
Yeah. So Roomba, for instance, the vacuum cleaner is based on his principles on how to build a robot, which is actually a useful thing. And that's also, I think, another thing where it's a funny property of AI and these kind of things is that we stop calling it a robot or AI once it works. We only call things that doesn't work well a robot, if you think about it. Like it's always this lab thing that looks a bit wonky and it falls on the ground and it's built by some researchers. That's a robot. But once it works, it's no longer a robot. It's a dishwasher, or it's a car that drives itself. It's not a robot. Or it's a vacuum cleaner, automatic vacuum. It's not a robot. So that's also one of those like inside jokes that AI research or robotics researchers have. Like you only call it when it's not working.
Yeah, and the consumer doesn't care.
No,
if it's
exactly.
AI embedded into the technology.
Yeah, exactly. That's.
I mean, we have AI in the smartphone
Siri
every day.
So. Yeah. Exactly. We only like to talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Alper Aydemir, for joining Heja Framtiden.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And check out volumental.com for some inspiration, and hejaframtiden.se to check out all the previous episodes. Follow us on social media. My name is Christian von Essen. Thank you for listening.